Writing workshop is facilitated by Roberto Carlos Garcia. If you don't know who he is, get to know him. Okay, Roberto Carlos Garcia is a 2023 New Jersey State Council of the Arts Fellow. He is the author of 5 books, including 4 poetry collections, Melancholia, Black Maybe, an Afro-lyric book, and elegies, and the recently published What Can I Tell You? The selected poems of Roberto Carlos Garcia, and he has Traveling Freely, which I don't, okay, here it is. And one essay collection, Traveling Freely, out now from the Northwestern University Press. Roberto is the founder of Get Fresh Publishing, a literary nonprofit. He writes about Afro-Latinx and Afro-diasporic experiences. His work has been published widely in places like Poetry Magazine, NACLAC, Poets and Writers, The Root, Breakbeat Poets, Volume 4, Latinx, Bettering American Poetry, Volume 3, and others. Roberto, take it away. Ruth will be managing and will be assisting you on this in this workshop. So any links or anything you want her to share in the chat or whatnot, just let her know, and all the best, folks.
Thank you, Angie, and thank you, Ruth.
Happy travels, Angie.
Safe travels, safe travels. Thank you, Ruth, for assisting with all of this. So this is going to be a basic workshop about getting your ideas out on the page. I think that's the most important aspect of all of this. So I want to make sure that we know that. Hopefully down the line, I can maybe do a workshop that's phase 2, maybe a little more advanced, or maybe this is all you need to get started. All right. So before I start, I just want to talk a little bit about notebooks and writing things down. I don't know if you journal. A lot of us journal. A lot of us are really bad about journaling. It's challenging for me to journal with any frequency because my writing process doesn't necessarily rely on routines. That's not how I write, but some people do utilize routines and they do journal. And if you do, that's wonderful. That's exactly what we want, right? I do have tons of notebooks because I write down little stuff all the time. And this is just a few of the ones that I have, and I have like filled up. I'm always carrying on with me. I'm always writing in it because you never know the way our minds work, at least the way my mind works. It's like it's making a quilt. If you've ever seen those patchwork quilts. And sometimes you can be working on an essay or a poem or a story or any form of writing, and you realize you've got to a point in it where there's a patch that you need to fill in. You need to put in another piece of cloth, and you're wondering what that is. If you have notebooks with your writing in them, your observations, your thoughts, right? And different ideas, things you've seen, you can turn to those notebooks. And in those notebooks, you will find more material that you need to fill in the blanks. Okay? So please, please, whatever you do, keep a notebook, write in it, fill it up. One of the poetry writing workshops that I do, and poetry writing has helped me tremendously with writing essays and writing fiction. But in one of the poetry workshops I do, one of the assignments is that you take a notebook with you everywhere you go and write down everything you see every day when you're out there going to work, going to yoga, on your jog, picking up your kids, whatever it might be. And you'd be surprised what material you can gain from it, okay? And I always refer to whatever you write down as material. I refer to it as material because I like to think about the creative process almost like Play-Doh. Once you have something written, some material written, a draft, now you can begin to shape it and form it, okay? So I wanted to start with that. This is my essay collection, Traveling Freely. It is out from Northwestern University Press. Thank you, Mel. Appreciate it. The process I'm going to share with you is the process I use to just get everything out onto the paper, which is the most important thing, is that you get your ideas out on paper, because then you have something to shape into an essay, all right? So, you know, there's a couple of poems, a couple of these essays, excuse me, online, but hopefully you'll support the book. All right, let me just pull up this PowerPoint real quick. And it's a short PowerPoint just to warm us up. It's not too detailed because what I want us to do is we're going to engage in some writing. I have to put this up, then I hit share. And then here it is, and share. Okay. I just have to wait for some, let me just move some of this out of the way. Hold on. Okay, hopefully everyone can see this. If you cannot, let me know. 1 second. Give me a thumbs up. Can everybody see this? Awesome. Okay. So what is one of the first things we need to do? 1 second. Yep, that's the right slide. I always say research, okay? Think about your subject and think about who has written about this in the past, okay? Because undoubtedly you're going to be in conversation with someone, and that's very important. It is also important to be able to differentiate your subject from your thesis, all right? Now, full disclosure, I'm a college professor. I teach English 101, composition, and so a lot of this stuff comes from that because nothing can make an essay messier than not being able to differentiate what you're talking about and what your point is that you're trying to make about what you're talking about. These things have to be very clear because once those two things are clear, the rest of your essay will have unity, okay? Meaning everything in the essay will begin to make sense, all right? Then once you determine your subject and your thesis or your argument, all right? One of the things I find is that different people have different ideas about what a thesis is, and all it is your argument. It is what you are trying to say about your subject, okay? Your position, your point of telling, whatever it might be. What skin you have in the game, all of that goes under thesis and argument, okay? And you can have multiple arguments depending on how long your piece is. If you're writing a book-length essay, you better believe you're going to have 3 or 4 different arguments, right? A primary, secondary, tertiary, etc. Okay? To that end, we have to now generate ideas around our subject and our argument. Sometimes those ideas are, if you're writing a narrative essay, sometimes those ideas are moments in the story. Yes? What happened? Who was there? Who said what? Who did what? How you responded and reacted. Okay? When and where that happened. Generating ideas is super important. You want to have as many ideas as possible because once you get stuck, that could derail your essay. And it's the difference between completing a project or having tons of drafts in limbo, okay? Which is something that happens to a lot of writers. I used to suffer from this all the time. I would start an essay, be fired up about it, hit a roadblock, and not have anything to turn back to continue my writing, right? I would end on an idea and I'm like, man, where do I go from here? And I didn't have a process by which to keep grabbing ideas and trying them out. So generating ideas is really important. Now, that being said, when you have a list of anything in front of you, what you have to do is make choices, okay? And when we look at the outline, you see what I mean about making choices. It's very important. Organizational patterns in your writing are also important. And perhaps you remember this, from high school, compare and contrast, cause and effect, order of importance, right? We remember all of these, right? The human brain looks for patterns. And so if when you're writing, you can create a pattern for your reader to follow, that creates engagement. In particular, if your subject matter is complex, I hate to use the word controversial because that's so tacky, but if it's liberation oriented, yes, which is a phrase I like to use. If you're writing about or towards any kind of liberation, you want to give your reader a pattern to follow because then that makes it easier for them to engage with your argument and your position. At least this is what I have found. But what I like about the outline is that it gives you the option of making the choice, a creative choice that aligns with what your material requires, because every project requires something different, right? So something to think about, okay? I don't want you to think of this as something super rigid, because ultimately you want your creativity to shine through. You want who you are to appear in your work, okay? But these are guideposts. And then we're going to look at the aspect of the outline that a lot of you are probably most familiar with, which is supporting details, all right? How do you take this idea and turn it into a paragraph, okay? Now, I wrote secondary sources here, and that's a very academic term, okay, for introducing other voices into your essays. I love being in conversation with writers who came before me, writers who laid the groundwork so that I can stand on their shoulders and write my own truth. And so I love to bring those writers in, not only to demonstrate how I've learned from them, but also to show readers that there is work out there that you need to engage with that's in conversation with what you're trying to do. Okay. And then what we want is to be able to generate a rough draft. And we want to be able to do it from everything we put into the outline. Okay. 1 second. I think I saw, is there a question, Ruth? Because I can't see the comments, but I think I saw a comment. Just let me know, please.
Oh, sorry, I just added the link to your book in the chat.
Okay, thank you. Cool. So when I think about researching your subject, all right, and again, we're not gonna go too much into this because this part of it I think is more for the second phase of what a follow-up workshop to this could be. But I want you to think about who's written about this subject already. What did they say about it? Right? When did they write it? Right? What era did they write it? And how did they approach it? Where was it published? Why was it important? Because all of this can help you find a model for your essay. All artists have a model in mind when they create their own work of art. Writing an essay is no different, okay? So often I think about this essay, James Baldwin's essays are always on my mind, and they're very hard to use as models, in my opinion, because of his sentences and his ideas. But having read Baldwin and then having read Ta-Nehisi Coates, I can see how James Baldwin is a model for Ta-Nehisi Coates' work. If any of you have read Between the World and Me or The Message now, you can see where Baldwin's work is a model, okay? If you've read Dion Brand's essays or Dion Brand's work, you can see how for Christina Sharp, Dion Brand's work is a model, but yet she's put her own stamp on her work in the same way Coates has. So this is really important. And I'll come back to this point, but I think in order to do anything well, you have to engage with the work in that field. And if you want to write essays, if you want to be an essayist, you have to read other people's writing. Now I put a short list here of essayists whose work I really admire and that I like to go back to again and again. Some of these folks are also poets. Some of these folks are also novelists, okay? But find other writers who are speaking to you, because here's something that happens. We can read an inspirational book. We can read a book about bettering ourselves and get an idea for an essay or a book ourselves. But that doesn't always mean that that book is your model. And the only way you can differentiate that is by reading books that are aligning with what you're trying to do. So hopefully that makes some sense. And just a little preamble before we start looking at our outline. Reading and researching with intention, again, just repeating that point, are the texts you are reading directly related to your subject matter? Cannot stress that enough, okay? If you're writing essays about your development through the public school system in New York City, right? And how that institution in and of itself tries but fails sometimes. Reading what is it? Live, Love, Laugh is not your model, right? For what you're writing. And so I think that that's super important to be able to recognize. The outline is just the beginning, okay? Don't come to the outline wearing a 20-pound dumbbell around your neck, okay? Be light, be open, all right? Don't overthink the outline. Just follow it, okay? This is really important. You don't want to be trapped in the outline, okay? You want to move through it, move through it, move through it, get to your rough draft, and that's when the work begins. The real work of writing begins with revision, okay? I cannot harp on this enough. This is just the beginning, all right? If you are, there's that scene in that movie Ghost where they're making the clay pot, right? And it's like very popular. But basically, you're just putting water and mud together, right? And dirt together to make clay. That's what you're doing. So don't overthink this part. Just get through it. Cannot stress that enough, right? The outline is the place where you think through your ideas, organize your ideas, create a repository of ideas, create a draft that you can build on, and then you can start to imagine a shape, form, and structure for your essay. All right? So hang on to that, okay? As soon as you find yourself getting stuck or weighed down, say stop, take a deep breath, and say, nope, I just got to go through this process and get through it. And that's super important. You have to read. And this is something that's becoming really challenging as a person who is either in the classroom or who goes into spaces to do workshops and things like that, is that we are replacing reading by following social media personalities that talk about the subjects we should be writing about. All right. Now, that's not to say that that doesn't have its place. It does. Okay. But if we want a more complete picture of what we're writing, we need to engage with other books. Okay. Cannot stress this enough. Engaging with the work of other writers will guide you to your own best work, and it will teach you. One of the things I love to do is to read books written by critics about the writers I admire, whether that be a biography or whether that be a book on not necessarily the craft, but how the writers went about creating their works. It doesn't matter what it is. There's a book about the relationship between Renard Marie Rilke, who was a poet, and Rodin, the French sculptor. Okay, and I was shocked to find that Rodin, the French sculptor's process, greatly impacted Rilke, the poet, and his own poetry writing and how he did that. And I was like, wow, it just gave me a different way to think about it. I went to McNally Jackson over there by the seaport Tuesday to listen to Edwidge Danticat and Michelle Stevenson. We all know Edwidge Danticat is, a writer, and Michelle Stevenson's a documentary filmmaker. And in their conversation, the overlap was incredible about their process. But what was amazing to me is that Edwidge Danticat said, the ocean to me is like water, and it's like being in water, and it's like seeing the waves. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, please tell me more. But there was only so much she can get into. And so why do I say that? Because why do I repeat what she said? Because as I'm listening to, I listen to the audiobook as I read the book in my hand. And as I went back to reread some of the essays, I understood what she meant, in that the way she writes her essays, she draws you in with this personal story and this family history, and then kind of pushes you out into the world by giving you the political background and the social background and the historical background, right? So she's like, in many ways, the essay is like an ocean in that it draws you in when the tide comes in, and then it pushes you back out when the water goes out. And I thought that was brilliant, right? But you only get to that, I think, once you have your rough draft, once you start shaping it, and once you start to think now about your work in this metaphorical way. So hopefully that's not too esoteric or heavy, but yeah. If you want to connect with me at all, please feel free. I'm an open book. Okay, whenever possible. If you send me an email, it might take me a little while to get back to you, but I'm more than happy to get back to you and continue a conversation, etc. Okay. Those are my social media handles. I'm all about creating community and ecosystems, etc. So whatever I can do to help you in your creative process, I'm here for that. Let me know, when I can kind of jump out of the slide if you have it.
Happy to add it to the chat as well. So we
Thank you.
can.
Thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate it. All right, so here we go. Let's get ready to write. I'm gonna pull up this PDF. And now, just want to say that before we start to write, I want everyone, and this is so important. When I started to do this, it made such a difference in my writing process. What I want everyone to do is pause for a second. Okay? Take a deep breath in and a breath out. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Right? I want us to kind of just relax ourselves so that our mind can do what we're asking it to do. Okay? Make sure our shoulders are relaxed. They're not up here, up on our neck, right? Drop those shoulders, move them. I teach a public speaking class, and before we engage in anything, we stand up and we do this meditation and breathing exercises because I want us to be able to condition our bodies and our minds to do what we want them to do. Okay? And it is so important that we breathe into what we're trying to do and tell our body, hey, we're about to do something. Okay, and that's what this signals, right, to our nervous system. We're about to do something. Let's breathe it in, breathe it out, right? And I'm going to pull up the outline and I'm going to ask us all we're going to go ahead and get started. So this outline, at first, I use this with my students because I figure if this works for me, hopefully it can work for them. And it works on many levels, okay? So I want us to begin by thinking about what it is you want to write about, okay? What is it that you want this essay to be about? Because many times we think we know, and then when we start writing, we realize, this is changing. And that's okay, all right? But if we write down what initially we thought we were going to be doing, and it ends up changing, then we can go back and revise intentionally. Okay, why did I think I wanted to write about this? And how did it become something else? Okay, because that something else can become part of your essay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to scrap your original subject idea. Maybe what it means is that what you initially thought was your subject is just an idea that has to go in your essay, if that makes sense. So let us take 5-10 minutes to think about our subject, okay, what we want to write about, and write that down. And I'm gonna make sure that Ruth and Angie share this PDF with you and this outline, and maybe you can shape it to make it what you want it to be. Okay, so go for it. What you want to write about. Couple more minutes. And I'm just sharing the document with Ruth for the purposes of sharing. Ruth, is that an L or an I?
It's an L. Ruth
Okay,
L. Cáceres.
thank you. Okay, sent, Ruth. You let me know if you received it. So if you'll know, I left, it's not just one line for what your subject is. Many times it starts out as this big meandering idea, so it could even be a paragraph long, okay? What happens is in the revision process, you'll refine that, and that's okay. Okay. How's everyone doing? Let me know when you're ready to move to the next part, okay? If you're still filling in your subject, that's fine.
While everyone wraps up, right? Yes.
Thank you, Mel.
The commercial, right? The commercial.
The commercials, right? Thank you.
Roberto, I want to be your student. No, not like I don't know, Mel, why you
I
open your eyes
get
like
it.
that.
But I mean, do you really want to start at 101? Like, come on.
Yes, I would. Yes, absolutely. I want to, like, I can see how I hope in my mind, I see your children being very inspired by you, even your tone and how you speak. It's very comforting and very, I just want to keep hearing your voice. Teach me. So,
We're trying out here, Lily. We're trying.
you're not trying, my love. You are doing.
All right, so Ruth has presented the link, so hopefully everybody can access it if you want to like fill it in as a Google Doc as you go along. Okay, so if you have your subject now, we got to give access. Yes, make sure we make it accessible to everyone. So now we have to begin to think about, all right, we have our subject. We know what we want to write about. Zeroing in on what exactly we want to say about it. Okay, that can sometimes be a little tricky. So don't think you have to get it perfect the first time, all right? There's this concept of what's called a working thesis. You begin with this argument. Hopefully, as you generate ideas, as you go through the process, you begin to refine that idea. You begin to refine that argument, okay? Don't think it has to be perfect on the first shot. This is something that is an obstacle, okay? Aiming for the finished product before you even begin the product, okay? Don't worry about that. Just think, what exactly are you trying to say about this? Right now, you have an idea. As you keep coming back to the project, this will evolve, okay? And will become more refined, and that's okay. So please take 10 minutes, all right? What I want to say about this is, okay? And just to give you a very simple example that I often use in class, okay, is I often ask my students, give me a subject, give me anything, right? And usually people bring up sports. So I'll say, okay, Michael Jordan is my subject. All right. I want to write about Michael Jordan, the basketball player, Michael Jordan, the human being. Okay. Michael Jordan, you know, the children of his parents, Michael Jordan, who's been married a number of times, Michael Jordan, the father. The subject is Michael Jordan, right? Now, what do I want to say about Michael Jordan? Okay. As much as I hate to admit it, Michael Jordan was an incredible basketball player. I'm a Knicks fan and I'm a Laker fan. So I can't like Michael Jordan. Sorry, I just cannot, right? But I could say Michael Jordan was an incredible basketball player, but I feel like he could have been a better human being. Okay. So, subject, Michael Jordan. Argument, incredible basketball player, but he could have been a better human being, right? People can argue with me about that. That's what we want. We want engagement, yes? So think about your subject and your thesis in that way, okay? The specificity of what you're saying about that subject, all right? And as you go along, again, it'll become more refined, but let's see what you're trying to say. And that's, again, a very basic example of how that's supposed to work, but it does work differently for everybody. I just want to mention that, okay? That the way you position the argument might not be that direct and maybe more multifaceted, and that's fine. That, again, will reveal itself as you revise, okay? Go ahead, take 10 minutes and fill out the thesis part.
Carlos, Carlos, can you make it bigger? It's hard to read. Yeah, okay.
No problem. 5 more minutes. Two minutes. Mel with the commercial break. Thank you, Mel. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So this next part is the most challenging part of the outline. Okay. whenever you get hit with a burst of inspiration or an idea for something, it's almost like a quick rush of adrenaline, or this quick rush, right, of energy. We feel so alive and moved, and we're like, oh, what a great idea. Oh my gosh, like I gotta write this down, right? That energy has to be what gets you through this part of the outline. It's tedious, okay? Because now you just got to keep thinking, what goes next? What goes next? What comes next? In fiction writing, there's this strategy. Some people call it signposts. Some people call it tent poles. Essentially, what you're doing is you're creating a series of moments in your story that you have to write towards, okay? The same concept, but with your essay. If it is a narrative essay, you want to write down or list as many moments in your narrative as you can possibly remember or think of. Who are the people in it? What did they say? What happened? How did it make you feel? What was the response? What was the aftermath? What was the thought process? You want to list as much of it as you possibly can. You want to fill in all 21 ideas, okay? And depending on the length of what you're writing, this idea list could have 40, 50 ideas in it. It just depends, okay? You'll make your choices later. Right now, what you want to do is lay out all of those ideas, okay? And again, you have to ride that wave because you need to get through this part in order to get to that rough draft, all right? And I'm gonna point out why later. In the next phase of this workshop, one of the things we would do is come back to your subject, your thesis, and your ideas to look at what some of the possibilities are, okay? And how you can open it and expand a little bit more. But for right now, you want to generate 21 ideas, okay? You wanna like go, right? You want to take a deep breath, you want to think about your subject, think about your argument, and list 21 ideas related to it, okay? Because each one of these ideas, again, has the potential to become a paragraph or 2 paragraphs in your essay that you explore. Make sense? All right? So everybody take a deep breath, okay? Because this is the part where people are like, oh my gosh. But I want you to think about this, right? Would you rather be stuck 3 paragraphs in, writing a wave of inspiration that all of a sudden that creative energy runs out, and then you think, well, my essay's dead. I guess it wasn't a good idea to begin with, right? Or you ride that wave of energy, you list all of your ideas, and when you sit down to actually revise, if you find that an idea is not working, you can always come back to this list and choose one that is. And in this way, your project doesn't die a quiet death. Okay? You always have some ideas to go back to. You have a list of ideas to examine and say, maybe I approached this list of ideas incorrectly. Maybe the kinds of ideas I should be looking at are B versus A, or D versus A or B. Make sense? You always want to have material to go back and draw from. And in this way, you're setting yourself up to prevent this crazy notion that exists called writer's block. Okay? I'm a firm believer writer's block is a myth. If you're experiencing writer's block, what that means is that somewhere in the process, you missed a spot, right? Or you need to rethink your creative process to ensure that you complete your projects, okay? So 10 minutes, all right? 10 minutes. Try to fill out as many of these as you can, okay? Kudos to you if you can do 21. If we got to do 15 minutes, you know, I can stretch it, but we want to like bang these out as quickly as we can. Go.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear what we're supposed to do.
So think about your subject,
Yes,
what you're trying to say about your subject, right?
right.
What are the ideas connected to this subject and your argument about the subject? Okay, so my example that I gave, Michael Jordan was an incredible basketball player, but I feel like he could have been a better human being because A, when I was growing up, kids were being shot and murdered for their Jordans. And when he would be questioned about it, his response was a little bit callous and capitalist. Not just in my opinion, but in the opinion of people in my community. Patrick Ewing's became very popular because Ewing charged 30 bucks for a pair of sneakers attached to a famous person, right? That's one idea. Two, uncontestably, he is one of the most, if not the most tremendous basketball player that ever existed. What are some things that I could pull up that prove that? Championships won, statistics, records, goals, etc. Yes? So I can keep going down the list by finding examples and ideas, right? Now think about the counter argument. Some people could say, hey, he's a human being like anybody else. If he just wants to make his money, play his ball, live his best life, and he doesn't want to engage in that stuff, he has a right to do that. That's the kind of country we live in. Bet. That's another one that can go down. Does that make sense, Rosita?
Yes, but I thought we did that already. 21 ideas, right?
Right, that's what we're doing now. If you jumped ahead and did that, fantastic.
I'm up to 17 already.
Hey, keep it going. Take this time, get the last 18, 19, 20, 21, and then we'll go from there. You're just a little bit ahead of us, but that's okay.
Yeah, but that helped me, the argument on the other side. I haven't not included that yet. So thank you. Thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you for asking your question. If anybody has any questions at any time, please.
21.
Ding, ding, ding.
It's getting harder, 21.
It definitely does. It does. Yeah. One more minute. Okay, so a couple of things I want to add to this is that one of the most challenging things for us as writers is trying to figure out exactly what it is that we're trying to say. So whether that be an essay or whether that be a story, short story or novel, right, or a play, there's something we're trying to communicate as artists, okay? And expanding your subject and your argument or complementing it or completing it with these ideas helps you get to that, okay? And you heard me mention unity in your essay, right? And that's going to come about by examining your outline, okay? And going from your outline to your rough draft, and from your rough draft to a first draft, and from a first draft to a second draft. You're going to keep examining how well these pieces fit together, okay? And so what's important is that you're going to have this blueprint, so to speak, this original material. You know, there's this idea around an actual organic thing called tierra prieta, right? Which is this rich soil, okay, that's jet black, oftentimes volcanic in nature, or soil that indigenous groups would treat with fire, okay? There's this practice of kind of scorching the earth, the top layer of the earth after you do a harvest to ensure that you protect the organic materials underneath the soil. And this soil, tierra prieta or terra preta, terra preta in Latin. I don't know how to speak Latin, so the pronunciation. The soil is very rich, very fertile. Okay, this is that soil for you. This is the soil out of which your ideas are coming from. Okay, where the inspiration hit. So keep in mind that depending on how long your project is, okay, you can spend more time with your outline depending on how involved and how long your project is going to be, okay? All right, now we have to make choices, okay, so that we can get started. And making choices is so hard, isn't it? Right? Figuring out, okay? I want you to look at your list of ideas and think about the top 11 ideas. All right. I always say, you notice there's 21, and then here there's, God bless you.
Thank you.
And here there's 11 because I always want you to have one more than you need. Okay. Especially initially. But keep in mind, you might pick 11 right now, then go back, find out that one of them or two or three of them don't work. You can always go back to that longer list. Okay. So do that now, please. Pick the ones you feel, okay, these I feel are like the most immediate ones when I look at my subject, when I look at my thesis. These 11 ideas from this 21 seem like the most immediate ones. Okay? And just write them down. A few more minutes.
How many do we choose?
11.
Okay.
Can everybody see the second page? It says, oh. Do I need to make it bigger or can you see it?
You can only see half the page. It cuts off at paragraph 2, sentence 1, topic 1. So
Okay, as long as you can see, organize the top, and it says 10, but it should be 11. I'm sorry.
it says 11. No, it says 11.
Yeah, so let's do 11. How we doing? Let me have a wave or a thumbs up emoji when we get there. I want to try to honor everyone's time. And remember, just because these look like the top 11 ideas for you right now, it's okay if that changes as you begin to write out your draft, okay? So remember, right now we're moving through, okay? We're just moving through. We're not getting hung up, right? We're just trying to like fill in the blanks so that we have something to work with. I know I said this before, but it bears repeating. The revision process, that's where everything happens. Right now, we're just establishing the material. Okay. So we're gonna just move ahead. So the next part of the outline might look like an outline you've seen before. This is a more traditional outline, okay? At least it is in academic circles, right? We're going to now map out our paragraph, okay? Now these ideas we've generated have to become paragraphs. We have to develop them into a paragraph. So I always encourage everyone to begin with your argument. State that first, at least while you're drafting, okay? As your draft evolves, you can move it around, you can blend it in, that is up to you, okay? But for now, just so that's always at the top of your page and you can keep track of it, we're gonna build out at least that first paragraph. And if we run out of time, I'm going to leave it up to you to build out the rest of them, all right? But let me first kind of walk you through what you're seeing in paragraph 1, right? So if you see paragraph 1, sentence 1, thesis, write your argument, boom, right up front. Again, doesn't have to stay that way, but that's for the purpose of just creating your rough draft. Then your supporting details. Supporting detail 1, that's sentence 1 or 2. B, C, D. These are all sentences, okay, that you're going to fill in. You're going to see in each paragraph that I give you room for a source or a secondary source. That is an opportunity for you to introduce another voice into your essay. While you're doing your rough draft, you don't have to worry about this, okay? But once you do your research on who else has written about this, okay? Or depending on what you're writing, if this involves facts and statistics, okay, information from studies and reports, all right? Or maybe you're in conversation with another book, okay? Maybe this is an essay/book review and you need to incorporate quotes, okay? Whatever it might be, whatever that other voice might be, okay? You can introduce it into your paragraph, all right? And the reason I put that in each paragraph is because I always want us to be thinking about that. Is there an opportunity here for me to introduce another voice that supports what I'm talking about, okay? Or that contradicts what I'm talking about and gives me an opportunity to demonstrate the contradiction and then reassert why I feel the way I do or how I have been transformed by this contradiction, if that makes sense, okay? So take whatever your thesis is, write that first, okay? And then begin with your first idea, all right? And from that idea, create supporting sentences. Now it's time to unpack what that first idea is. Everybody with me?
I think so.
Let's give it a try. That's better than no. I think so, right? That's better than no.
Okay.
So again, going back to my Jordan example, if my first idea was Michael Jordan sneakers were too expensive, how am I going to unpack that idea? I'm going to say a pair of Jordans cost, $175 back in, or $100 back in the late 80s, and in the 90s, the prices just kept going up. This meant that in underserved communities, if you had a pair of Jordans, you had a target on your back, right? Because the shoes were so expensive. And now where I want to take it from there is going to be up to what my argument is, right? If my argument is Jordan could have sold those sneakers for cheaper, right? I could say that. If I want to say those sneakers cost $150, $175, even though people in sweatshops were being paid $1.50 a day to make them, right? Like, what do I want to bring into it? Like, how do I want to impact that idea? So if your first idea, right, if you feel like it doesn't necessarily follow your thesis narratively, that's okay. Because many times what an essay does is establishes the argument, right? And then in a roundabout way brings us to that argument, right? In a roundabout way proves that point. So that's okay. Don't worry about that. So just responding to Little Man Lopez, the third one I said was order of importance. I'm going to share a document with you all in a couple minutes with some different organizational patterns. And I'm going to send these to Ruth so she can share them with you all. And you can look at them, take your time with them. Okay, how do we make out with that? How do we find that process of filling in the first paragraph or working to fill it in if you're not finished?
I think since starting the 21 ideas, I feel like that's how it starts to get really getting deep into the topic of it. Okay, you have this idea and it becomes harder. Like, okay, yeah, now be more detailed, like it becomes more challenging. Like, wait, I just have a sentence and I'm still at scratching the surface. So the 21 this really challenge you and like, wait, do I want to talk about this or do I? So yeah, it's
Yeah. It's a form of it's almost like the Russian dolls that you open one and there's another one that you have to open and another one that you have to open. You're unpacking, and because that's in essence what we're doing.
yeah.
Okay? We are unraveling this idea. And depending on, where where we are in our own growth and development, and in particular as it is connected to what we're trying to write about, yeah, it can become challenging because then we may come to some scary moments. But
Mm.
And
I
last,
think
sorry.
I think I think a lot of times we assume other people um, have our basic beliefs. We like universalize our own history and experiences, and then you express an opinion, but the other person doesn't have your life experience. So you arrived at a conclusion and you're assuming everybody had your life experience, you know? So this makes you look more inward and fathom how you arrived at certain feelings and thoughts. And it
yeah,
exposes that process so the reader can better understand.
yes, I'm glad you said that. Amina, definitely. I also want to say that the brain is very much like a muscle in certain regards, in that the more we do this, the more we go through this process, okay, the better we'll become at it. The easier it should become, because again, navigating certain experiences, etc., can be challenging. But the more we do it, the better we'll get at it. And I think that that's super important. And so what you'll see is that I've listed out, let me make sure this gets here. Hold on. The ability for you to fill in up to 12 paragraphs. Okay. If you need them. Sometimes you may be able to get it done in fewer, depending on how long those paragraphs end up becoming. Or sometimes you may want to keep going, and that's great. That's up to you. Okay. There's another aspect of this where we talk about signal phrases and signal verbs and ways to introduce the other voices that you're going to bring in. Okay. I'm not going to spend too much time on that now. Again, there'll be, I think I should talk to Angie and do a second part of this workshop. But right now, what I want us to then look at very briefly is just organizational patterns, or patterns for you to look out for in this process, okay? But I really want you to commit to something, okay? I want you to commit to completing this outline and writing the rough draft based on this outline, okay? One of the things about this outline that you should be able to do immediately after completing it is write a rough draft, okay? Once you complete this outline, if you want to take a day, that's fine in between. But from this outline, you can go right to a rough draft, okay? And then take a couple of days, let that rough draft sit and come back to it. And now start to revise, start to see, okay, are these making sense? Okay, my ideas making sense one after the other. Where do I need to begin? And again, that'll be part of the next workshop. Right now, it's just about getting to the rough draft, okay? But I'm going to share that PDF, and let me stop share here. Pull up this PDF. No, it's not this one. It's this one. Share. And let me make this a little bigger so I understand. So you'll see these are different organizational patterns, either in academic writing or in writing in particular, okay? Definition, classification, chronological order, process. It really just depends on what you see. We do this subconsciously, all right? Once you've had enough practice, you may be able to do it willfully, and that's great. But a lot of times this happens subconsciously, okay? Or unconsciously. Definition. Pierce Morgan wrote this this essay, and I hate to bring his name up because I cannot stand this dude. But anyway, he wrote this essay about the N-word, which was hilarious to me, okay? Because I'm like, wait, why does this matter to you, okay? And he had this very narrow definition of what the N-word means and why Black people use it, and et cetera, okay? And so in response to this essay that uses definition as its organizational pattern, the rapper Talib Kweli, who himself can be very problematic at times, redefined or he wrote a counter argument to Pierce Morgan's essay where he's also defining and redefining the N-word, its context, its history, etc., right? So here is an example of definition of taking a term, right? An idea or a phrase and redefining it or defining it as. This is an organizational pattern, okay? Again, it all depends on what you're writing about. And when you look at your ideas and when you look at your outline and then your rough draft, you should see some kind of pattern emerge. But in order to be able to see the pattern, you have to recognize it. You have to recognize what it is, right? And so I'm going to have I'm going to email this to Ruth so she can share it with all of you so that you can use it as a guide, okay, to think about how to then organize your essay using ideas like not just compare and contrast and cause and effect, order of importance, because we know those from school and those we've been beat over the head with those. But there are some other ones that are, you know, a bit more complex. The workshop only goes till 12:30. It's already 12:35. I have an event I have to get to at 1 p.m. Okay. But what was important to me is that you fill out your outline, okay, or be on your path to completing the outline as a tool to get to a rough draft effectively and quickly, okay? But then also become familiar with these organizational patterns as a way to organize your ideas in the essay, okay? And these are just some. I saw 3 new message. I used this one, first, cause, second, impact, third solution. That is excellent, Idalmi, because that's the kind of pattern I tend to use as well. Okay, I always want to offer a solution or an idea or a path forward, if that makes sense, in my essays. And that is definitely something you can do. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And again, it can start as an essay, and let me just make sure I'm replying. It can start as an essay, but it could become a short story. It could become a one-act play. It could become a narrative poem for all you know, right? The sky's the limit. Okay, this is just like a process, if that makes sense. Yes, yes. Amina, I would also like to suggest for you and for anyone else, Johns Hopkins University on their website has a section of their website called Essays That Worked, and they are college application essays that they particularly liked and use to provide kind of guidance and inspiration for their students. And I often share them with my students. So if you want to see the ways in which these writers are using patterns, okay, you can definitely do that. And I have a feeling it could help you with your MFA application. All right, so I will make sure that these documents get emailed to you. Ruth, that's possible, yes? All right, so I will email them to Ruth. Any last minute questions before we head out?
Thank you so much and enjoy your event.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I'll definitely come back to try and do the second part of this. I will give you a shameless plug, is that I use this process to write my essays, and if you want to see some of these processes at work in the actual essays, they are here in the book. So hopefully you're interested in reading them and you can gain something from it, which I think is what's more important. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lily. Thank you, everyone. I hope you
Thank
enjoy
you.
the rest of
Thank
your
you,
Sunday.
Roberto.
You're welcome.
I shared the links to your book. Your social media handles are there. You can also save the chat, everyone, so that you have all that information with you that we've added to the chat. I also added our Dominican Writers Association Instagram handle if you don't already follow us, because that's where we can update you continuously on the workshops. If we can have Roberto come on again, you would find out through there as well. So I'll keep you up to date on that. And I also added my email address, my Gmail in the chat, just in case you don't see the documents that you are expecting after today's workshop. You can always email me as well, and I'll make sure that you have it. And also this session is recorded, so this is something that we can also share with you via link. So thank you. Thank you, Roberto. I know I've learned a lot today as well. So I really appreciate your service.
It was tremendous. It was just beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everybody. Have a
Thank you,
great
guys.
day.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Enjoy your Sundays.